about the increasing demand for personal protective equipment, which is a huge concern for many countries across the globe. The World Health Organization has warned that severe disruption to the global supply of personal protective equipment caused by rise in demand, panic buying, hoarding, and misuse has put the lives of many healthcare workers who are in the front line of the coronavirus pandemic at risk. Since the start of the COVID-19 outbreak, prices have surged. Surgical masks have seen a six-fold increase, and 95 respirators have trebled, and gowns have doubled. Supplies take months to deliver, and market manipulation is widespread, with stocks frequently sold to the highest bidder. People across the globe are now coming together to see what they can do to contribute to the growing need. In London, 4 women organized a volunteer movement that has sewn almost 4,000 sets of scrubs for British healthcare workers. The women decided to act when Britain's National Health Service ran short of protective gowns and other forms of PPEs.
Just after COVID kicked off, we had a request for a set of scrubs from a doctor, and we quickly realised that this was a shortage, which is continuing now. So we got together and thought that we could fix this problem very quickly. So we got some fabric and we started making these scrubs. We got a team of volunteers involved. We made our first batch of 10, and then the orders started coming through thick and fast, and we were like, we can't do this alone. We put a call out to all the sewers, the costumers, the production team people that have been out of work, and they came on board.
Fashion firms are turning their supply chains to masks and gowns. Sweden's H&M has sent 50,000 masks each to Italy and Spain, and plans to deliver 1 million protective single-use aprons to Sweden's hospitals. The lockdown measures across the globe to stop the spread of COVID-19 has pushed the fashion industry to a fast decline. Some designers are retooling their operations to fight the pandemic. In Nigeria, the fashion brand Tiffany Amber has converted their garment factory from producing fashion items to medical garments in support of the medical sector.
My name is Folake Akinele Koka, the founder of Tiffany Amber Nigeria. In the past few months, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a dreadful impact on people's lives and businesses all over the world, and the fashion industry was certainly not exempted. When the reality of the pandemic hit me, I panicked. I thought, could this be the end of a 21-year-old journey for Tiffany Amber? It was important to me that operations continued. Tiffany Amber is a luxury brand, and right now, luxury is the last thing on anybody's mind. So the only way that we could keep the operations going was to stop production of our luxury items and focus on essential items necessary for this period. It only made sense to focus our expertise of garment production on medical garments and cloth face masks to help bridge the gap in the supply of medical apparel. As a result, in the middle of March, I took a decision to temporarily redirect our expertise and production capacity and convert our production from fashion items to medical garments. This decision was our way of keeping our operations alive so that the staff can still earn an income, and was also our own way of supporting the medical sector in its fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Every single day, we make sure that all the staff are following the safety guidelines as recommended by the World Health Organization and the Ministry of Health. We accommodate and feed every single production staff on site and make sure they're not exposed to the outside world. Tiffany Amber has deployed over 10 tons of fabric and raw materials, and my team and I have worked strictly and tirelessly under the recommended safety guidelines to produce and make available these much-needed supplies to the hospitals and medical facilities that need them. We were able to triple our production capacity, which has allowed us to produce and deliver tens of thousands of cloth face masks, hospital gowns, scrubs, hospital sheets, and other medical apparel. In addition, we are also donating 10,000 face masks to the most vulnerable. And though this might seem like a tiny gesture in the scheme of everything, we're happy to be able to contribute in our own little way.
fashion label Gaetamo Apparel converted their factory to making cloth masks.
I realized that the supply chain is locked down. Now, what's available that can be used locally for us to even make these cloth masks? A mask is better than none at all. And so I thought, wait a minute, I've got this factory here. It's doing nothing at this time. All the retail stores are closed. Why don't we just turn it around and start making the masks?
The help from the fashion industry barely scratches the surface of what is needed to protect healthcare workers in the fight against the disease. The World Health Organization estimates that 89 million masks are required for the COVID-19 response each month. For examination gloves, that figure goes up to 76 million, while global demand for goggles stand at 1.6 million each month. But the world's economy's sudden halt has caused bottlenecks. Air freight cargo that usually travels in the holds of passenger airplanes are no longer flying. Shipping lines have canceled sailings or dropped ports from their itineraries. And many countries that are entirely reliant on imported personal equipment are now vulnerable to the caps on imports. On April 3rd, President Donald Trump ordered restrictions on American exports of personal protective equipment, including respirators, masks, and gloves. China made half of the world's masks before the pandemic began. Not surprisingly, its exports of PPEs fell by 15% in January and February. Its production of masks increased 12-fold since the pandemic started. However, most are going to domestic use, especially for workers in factories. The severe shortage of personal protective equipment are leaving doctors, nurses, and other frontline workers dangerously ill-equipped to care for COVID-19 patients. On April 17th, health officials in Britain announced that some personal protective equipment may now be reused rather than discarded. The medical staff have used bin liners for improvised protection. In Italy, doctors in some hospitals go into 8-hour shifts wearing adult nappies to avoid wasting their precious PPEs they're wearing. To meet the global demand of PPEs, the WHO has called on industries and governments to increase manufacturing by 40%, which is a challenge for most countries without domestic production capacity. In Ghana, 5 major companies have taken up production of key PPEs in the country.
Today we are seeing what Ghanaian ingenuity and industry is about. In response to the need for personal protective equipment for our healthcare workers, the President directed that we have these key PPEs, the personal protective equipment, produced in the country. The Minister for Trade and Industry took up this challenge and pushed to have 5 major companies take up the production of key PPEs in the country.
In Nigeria, the Cross River State Garments Factory produced face masks to assist the country in its fight against the disease.
It is my responsibility to adopt, revise all known methods, an amalgam of all the techniques that are available to me to ensure that I guarantee security and lives of my people. Cross River State is so prepared and committed to ensure that at the fullness of time, when this plague comes and goes, Cross River would have had a 0 incident.
To ramp up production of PPEs, governments must develop incentives, which includes easing restriction on the export and distribution of personal protective equipment and other medical supplies. Without secure supply chains, healthcare workers around the world will remain at risk. More glaring is that COVID-19 cannot be stopped without first protecting our healthcare workers.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. And now for stories trending around the world, Oji is here with us. Well, you are still here with us.
Where was
I? We saw you on screen. We watched your package.
That was a brilliant
brilliantly
report.
put together.
Thank you.
And I think we expect more.
You
from
do?
You.
No, that was
I will
brilliant.
give you more.
And, you know, it's interesting, there were so many interesting points that you brought up there. The fact that companies are being called on to ramp up their manufacturing by 40% in order to meet the current demand.
Correct.
You know, honestly, that was a great report, Oji. Thanks for highlighting that.
I think it's so important that people should realize this because, you know, like I said, without these protective equipments, these health workers are really at risk. They are contracting the disease every single day.
And they're having to get innovative and find new ways to protect themselves.
Particularly those Nigerian examples that you cited.
Right.
Tiffany Amber said, she thought this would be the end of
21 years.
21 years of
I'm
work.
very proud of her.
Now, you know, you see that challenges can present new opportunities.
Yes.
And, you know,
Lemons
compel
to lemonade.
businesses to become creative and innovative.
Absolutely.